Hey everyone, it's Rob from GameStuffs here. We finally have our components in for our AMD APU build. Cost around $200 Canadian to about $150 US when you factor in the prices in different countries. Other zones will have their own relative pricing. So anyways, it's a low-cost build. We've got a recycled hard drive that we picked up from another unit that somebody's thrown out. SATA hard drives are everywhere. Dime a dozen or free, so we'll recycle that. But everything else is purchased, and we'll go through the build, and we'll put an OS on it. We'll do some initial testing. So stay tuned. Thanks for hanging in there while we were waiting for this stuff to come in. And that's it. So let's put it together and see what we get. Hey there. All right. I have to apologize first off. My tablet corrupted the video I had done of unboxing the CPU and board and plugging the CPU into the socket. And I don't have any solvent to clean the thermal paste off and reapply it and do it again. So what I'll do is, if anyone's interested, I will just put a link below of somebody, not me, plugging in an AMD socket CPU. So yeah, unfortunately that was all thanks to my processor, but it takes moments, and I literally need moments. Unpack it from the box, pop it in, close. There's a little locking tab underneath here. This is the heatsink. You'll notice the heatsink itself has a locking tab. On either side there is a plastic block rather, where two clips are fastened, and that comes as part of this block heater. You clip it on either side, lock it, and that forces the heatsink down onto the CPU. Now there's thermal paste that does come attached to this, so you don't have to worry about doing it yourself. And let's just plug in our Kingston RAM. There are two channels here, if you can see that. There is a notch in the middle, so you can't screw it up, and of course it just slides into either groove and clicks into place on both sides. If I've actually got it in here right, there you go. So that's it. This is a micro ITX board, and not to be confused with a mini ITX board, which is actually smaller. Mini ITX board is probably about here. It goes up to one PCIe slot, and that's about all it offers. So it's smaller, it fits in smaller cases. So be aware that when you order a board, if you've got a micro ITX board rather, you need to buy a case that will fit that. And yeah, so that's it. I mean, if you're going for a tower, everything fits. But anyway, stay tuned for the rest of this. Thanks for watching. We'll get this in our case, and we'll install the rest of the stuff and get it going. Before we put this together, I thought we'd mention a quick couple points about the board. Let's turn on its side here. We've got a few connectors down here. Here's our SATAs, where we will connect in our hard drive, and if we have a DVD drive, which we don't, or any other internal storage peripherals. And this is our block where we're going to be hooking up the front case pieces. Our USB 2 ports will be right here, and our audio is over here. So it's pretty straightforward if you haven't done this before, and I might be telling people something they've already known. I mean, looking at PC boards, they've been around for quite a while. So anyways, we'll be going ahead with this. I'll be putting it in the case, and we'll be hooking it up. So bear with me. I'm not going to do as I said before, I'm not going to do one of those time-lapse things where you watch me put it in. We'll just do a couple of the highlights, because that's really not intended to be a build video, just kind of demonstrating putting the thing together. So anyways, that's it. Let's move on. Before we begin, I thought I'd do a little bit of a note on cases. Now, if you recall, we were getting this little Via case originally for our build, and I took for granted, this is completely an amateur move,
I took for granted that I've built probably about 4 or 5 machines based on these AppVia shoebox cases, and in all situations, they have been bigger than this. They were micro ITX builds, and this is actually specifically only for a mini ITX case. So, as you can tell, this board here is a micro. Now, that's a word of warning too. Micro is actually bigger than mini. It's just the way that the naming works on these things and the standard. So, anyways, as you can tell, this board is too big for this case. So rather than send the case back, what we'll do is we will hold on to it, and I'm thinking of building a inexpensive AM1 socket build. The AM1 motherboards are usually the mini sizes, so it would fit in here rather nicely, and it would provide a nice contrast between the A series APUs, and which use an FM2 socket, 2 plus in this case, and the smaller AM1 series processors. So, anyways, just note to that if you're buying a case and buying a system board, make sure the sizes match up. Micro and mini, be aware of that. So, anyways, chuckle. My bad, but we will use the case again because I like the size of it. I didn't realize it was going to be that small. So we'll use it in the future, but we will be building off of our in-win case, and let's get to that. Right, so what we're going to do is we're going to remove this assembly here so we can get access to the base of the unit. And by doing that, it looks like we have a couple tabs to remove the faceplate, and off it comes. Come on, baby. All right. So from here, we can see we've got a couple screws, it looks like, holding this in, or just one screw. Let's get rid of this. All right, that lifts off. So, of course, here's where our DVD-ROM would go. Should we decide to put one in, which we won't. It's not at this point. This is an assembly which is supposed to assist with cooling. So we want full access to the board for our testing, so we're just going to leave it open like this, if you can see. And there we go. Okay, so let's put our system board in. So looking at the back of the unit, with the motherboard, this is a little pressure plate that goes in the hole back here, so we'll just put that in. Move these guys off, out of our way. And it should fit in with a minimal of force. And that's it. So from here on in, you can probably see, get this out of the way, you can probably see some standoffs down here. That is where our system board will fit in. I'll remove this cable assembly here and just route it out of our way. Just a minute, make you wait while I look for the scissors. Alright, so here's our internal cables. You'll notice this is shorter here, so we can actually reach our hard drive. So that's kind of nice. Cable management is something that a lot of people are big into. It just kind of makes the inside look tidy. And if you've got additional fans, it kind of keeps it out of the way. So this isn't cable management. We're just kind of cleaning up so we can get the board in. All right, that should be fair enough. Okay, so getting the board in always requires a little bit of wiggling because you want it to line up with the exit ports on the panel here. So usually once you got it in place, you'll see there's it'll line up with little standoffs there, or very close. And at that point, then you can start to put the screws together in all of your little standoffs. Again, probably telling you something you already know. But for those of you who haven't, you know what? There's probably a 1,000 better videos than this on how to put a PC together. Once again, this is just sort of the rudimentary steps, and it is quite simple. I mean, I wouldn't be so bold as to say if you put together a Lego, you can do it, which some people do. But it's there's my phone. But it is quite simple. So I'll just continue with the screws here, put it together, and be right back, and answer the phone too. All right, coming back. Kind of losing our light here. That was a longer conversation than I thought. This, of course, is our main power to the board. You'll see it right here in front of the RAM. Our secondary auxiliary power, which is near the back, you'll recall that. I don't know if you can see it. We've got two 4-pin power connectors, which is coming off the power supply as well. And, of course, there's our SATA connectors for the drive. And at that point, we're good to go. We've got our audio, which connects at the back. I think you saw that on the earlier look at the board. This will be our USB. Here's another USB. So we've got two USB 2 header blocks that will connect up. And here are all our tiny, you can see that, tiny little connectors for the front. So we'll get those going. And here is our little squeaker speaker. Not all cases have a speaker with them, but we'll hook that up as well. So rather than you watching me hook up all these little cables, I'll do that and we'll come right back. All right, so as I said, we're losing our light. Here's everything hooked up. It is a complete cable mess here. We'll worry about cable management, tie wraps, and everything after we test our first power on and make sure that we don't have to unplug things and plug them back in. So anyways, pay no attention to the mess. It's not there. And let's plug this in and make sure that we actually get a boot up. Hooked up. I've got my wireless keyboard hooked into it. We've got our power in and our HDMI in on the motherboard. And our power switch, I believe, is right here. So hopefully there's no smoke. One beep is good. Hey, there we go. No bootable device, which is fine. We haven't loaded our OS on it yet. And there we go. Now, you'll notice our CPU frequency is 3.8 gigahertz, and our memory frequency, it starts out at a base of 1330. So we're going to want to change the settings for our memory so that we get 1600 megahertz. So we will do that after we get this whole thing up and running. But for now, I'll do some cable management, tidy it up a little bit, and put the case back on. And we'll load our OS on it, Windows 8.1, via USB. Anyways, thanks. Let's just move on. Okay, so we've got this tidied up. It's a bit of a ghetto cable management bit there. I've used twist ties just to get things out of the way. I don't want to use anything permanent because we'll be going in and out of here over a period of time. So I kind of want something that's flexible, that I can remove if I need to, pull wires out. So anyways, the goal was just to get something away from the system board, especially where we can have access to our PCIe slot here if we start to test some video cards with this. So anyways, that's it. Let me put the case back on and we will start our OS install. I'm going to plug this in. I've got my Windows image on a USB stick. Plug her in. And we will power on. Hopefully we'll see a Windows logo here in a minute. Any minute. There we go. Coming up. Perfect. All right, so what I'll do is I will go through the install, and we'll just end the video with Windows 8.1 on it, and then we'll start a series of tests, I guess. But at least I'll get this out there. We'll know we have a successful build, and from there I'll load up the drivers, the Catalyst software for the APU, and we'll start to run some tests on it. All right. I thought I'd mention this. I do this every time I set up Windows 8.1, and there's a settings page as you start to go through the configuration of Windows once it's actually got the files loaded and it's booting up into Windows. And this settings page in particular, so don't pick the use the default settings or the quick settings. I can't remember what it said the previous page. On this one that talks about sharing info with Microsoft and other services, it comes on by default. All these switches here are on. I turn every one of them off because what it does, it shares a lot of your browsing and your applications with your name, your advertising ID. It gets your location. It snoops on you. So make sure you don't pick the default settings. You go in and customize it and turn these guys. Everything else as it sits is fine. It's just this particular one that says share info with Microsoft and other services. It sends your stuff everywhere. So I thought I'd mention that just as I'm setting this up. Never pick this. So anyways, moving on. Completed build based on the AMD A4-7300 APU, which has got a Radeon A4-70D in it, and we'll start to do some game testing on this unit. I'm eager to see. One of the first ones I want to try is GTA 5 on it, so we see just how well it handles that. I'm not sure about that, but it should be fairly playable. I'm guessing. The GPU in this is better than the R5 230. It's not as good as the R5 240. It's better than the R5 235X, which is a proprietary one you'll see OEMs using. So it's very low end, but it's capable compared to what you can buy in very low end cards out there. As a matter of fact, the CPU itself costs as much as those cards, which is kind of crazy. So we'll leave it at that. Do some tests coming up. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned. Today we'll put up maybe one of our first game tests, and we'll see what we get. All right, thanks guys. Take care. All the best.